Hello everyone, Sidanet here and welcome to, another how to get started on Avalanche. We did a similar video like this 6 months ago, but 6 months is a lot of time within the blockchain space and a lot of things have changed. With the recent increased interest in the Avalanche blockchain, I've seen that this video is picking up a lot of views, even though things have changed and it's actually a lot more easier. So I figured now is a great time to give this one a little update. Now I've got a couple topics I want to cover today. I hope the video will not be too long. I will be using chapters, so you should be able to navigate through the chapters on YouTube if any topic is not relevant for you. With that said, let's get started. So one important thing to note about Avalanche is that it's not actually a single blockchain. Instead, it is many different chains and the primary network consists out of the X, P and C chains. With the upcoming release of subnets, infinitely more could be added. For now, it's important to know that the C chain is where most of the DeFi activity takes place. It's a version of the Ethereum virtual machine with the Avalanche consensus, meaning it's a lot quicker and it can support a lot more validators. The X chain is the exchange chain, if you will. It's the most effective one at simply transferring funds. It's very cheap and fast. And the platform chain is where staking and validating takes place. Now, depending on how you want to interact with Avalanche, you may only need the C chain or only the X and P chain. But to make full use of the network, you will need to know about all three of them. The good news is that all three of them can be accessed from a single wallet, which is the Avalanche Wallet. If you do not yet have one, it's very easy to create one. You can just generate a new wallet. Click on Generate a Key Phrase. Now it's important to note this down in a secure location that's not very accessible to other people. I would generally recommend making a physical copy, so writing it down and not storing it on your PC. But because I'm just using this wallet for the video and will not really be using it for funds, I will just make a quick copy for myself. Then I confirm that I've written down the key phrase in a secure location and press Access Wallet. And then finally complete the mnemonic phrase to indicate that we in fact did write it down. Once that's done, we can access our wallet, which looks like this. Of course, it's currently empty. As you can see here, you have the X, P and C chain in a single wallet. The addresses also look different, so you won't easily mistake the one for the other. The X chain always starts with XAVX, P chain with PAVX, and the C chain, because it's an instance of the Ethereum virtual machine, always starts with 0x. Within your wallet, you can easily review your tokens and your collectibles, and for your AVAX switch chain is on. If you want to send your tokens between the three chains, you can press on cross chain, and you can, for example, swap from X chain to P chain, for example, if you want to stake or validate. In order to stake or validate, you go to the Earn tab. You need at least 25 AVAX to delegate, or 2000 AVAX to validate, and of course run a validator node in that case. For delegation, there's a minimum 2% fee on your rewards, which is about 10% on a yearly basis, which gets paid to the validating nodes. Within the wallet, you can also find the NFT studio, in which you can create your own NFTs, which will live on the Avalanche X chain. However, like I said, most DeFi activity takes place on the C chain, and while this wallet does support the C chain, it does not actually really support DeFi. For that, you normally use MetaMask. Actually, you don't need to use MetaMask per se. There's a couple different options such as Rabby or the Avalanche native AVME wallet, which also has a browser plugin. But MetaMask is the most used, so for the sake of this video, I will be using the MetaMask one. If you do not currently have a MetaMask wallet, you can go to metamask.io and press download now. I'm currently on Chrome, so I will download MetaMask for Chrome. Add it to Chrome. Add the extension. And once it's installed, it opens up automatically. I always like to pin it by going to extensions and then pressing pin. And then basically we have to do the same thing we just did with the Avalanche wallet. We press get started. In this case, we're going to set up a new wallet. If this is your first time, you should probably read this screen, but for this video, we'll skip it. Type in a password and read and agree the terms of use. Once again, if this is your first time, you should probably watch this video. But for us, we're going to go straight to the secret recovery phrase, which works exactly the same as we just did for Avalanche. Once again, recommend you to write this down on a physical piece of paper and store it securely. If anyone ever has this secret recovery phrase, they can access your wallet without any password or anything. I've copied down my secret recovery phrase and gonna confirm that to MetaMask by completing it again in the right order. And then confirm. And there we go, the wallet is now active. As you'll see, we're actually starting on Ethereum mainnet, but of course we want to use it for Avalanche. In order to do so, we need to add a custom RPC endpoint. So we can click on Ethereum mainnet, then add a network. Then we need to Google this information. For example, MetaMask Avalanche seed chain. Open the first link. Scroll down a little bit and this is the information you need to copy. And once you've done that, you can save it. Now MetaMask is ready to interact with DeFi on the Avalanche seed chain. Now I just showed you how to set up both the Avalanche and the MetaMask wallets. But in both of those cases, we wrote down the keys for ourselves and we're supposed to keep those keys safe ourselves. A lot of people, me included, will recommend you to use a hardware wallet, especially if you're gonna move any mid-sized amount of funds onto the wallet. They're not that expensive and in terms of security, they're definitely worth it. So I've got an unused ledger right here that's still sealed. I got it from the Ledger website. I always get it from the Ledger website. Amazon, it's a bit risky because you don't know if someone messes with this. If someone messes with your hardware wallet and you do not know, you actually do stand at risk of losing your funds. So just order it from the Ledger website or the Trezor website. I just don't have much experience with that. And always make sure that the package is still sealed. There's also a couple of other security things you need to keep in mind, such as the ledger should not have been installed yet and should not come with a PIN already set. So I just unpacked it, and if you've never seen a ledger, this is what they look like. They're kind of like USB sticks, but the only thing they really carry is your private keys, meaning that in order to remove any funds from your wallet, you need to have that ledger plugged into your computer and use it to confirm the transaction. Do note that the ledger will still not protect you from losing a seed phrase or a private key, so I just plugged in the ledger for the first time, and the first thing we need to do is set it up. So I just set it up as a new device and set the PIN code, and next I also have to write down a 24-word secret recovery phrase for the ledger itself. Again, if someone does have that phrase, they can use it to make a backup of your ledger, so be very careful with it. Luckily, the ledger will come with a convenient piece of paper to note it down on. And there we go, ledger is now set up, but it does not have any apps yet. Apps are needed to interact with specific blockchains. In order to install apps, we're gonna need to use Ledger Live. You can just get Ledger Live from the Ledger website. I already have it on my PC, but installing it is nothing special. In order to add apps to your ledger, you need to go to Manager, then unlock your ledger and allow it to use Ledger Live, which you do on your ledger. And as you see, my ledger currently has 0 apps installed. We will be installing both the Ethereum and the Avalanche app. It has 144 kilobytes of capacity, which is just about enough to install the Avalanche and the Ethereum apps. It may sound confusing, but you need the Ethereum app to control MetaMask. So Ethereum is right here, so we can install it from here. And the Avalanche app is just a little below, right here. If you ever cannot find them, you can also simply type in the search bar. For those apps installed, it's best to close Ledger Live, because otherwise, occasionally, the connection with Ledger Live will interfere with your connection to a different app. So if you have the Avalanche app installed, you can open it up on your ledger, and you can now also access an Avalanche network wallet through your ledger by going to Access Wallet, and selecting your ledger, then again selecting the ledger you want to connect with. Logically, you'll only have one connected at a time, and then you have to sign 2 transactions, which is basically allowing your wallet to read that you have access to the ledger that hosts your wallet. I just confirmed 2 transactions on my ledger, and in a moment, there we go, the wallet has loaded. And this is a different way to get access to the wallet. This wallet specifically is only accessible if you have the ledger, so it is more secure. So for any large amount of funds, this is recommended. One thing I didn't mention previously, but it may be interesting to know, is that your derived wallet address will change every time. That's a privacy feature, so that whenever you give someone your wallet address, they cannot track you into infinity. All of these addresses are derived from your private key. And even though this one will change every time you use it, whenever you use an older address, it will still arrive in your wallet. And it's good to know that if there's ever an airdrop to validators or delegators, it's normally not dropped to this specific address, because this is normally a newer address than the one you use to send your @validator or @delegator transactions. In order to use your ledger with MetaMask, you can go to your account here, then connect the hardware wallet. In our case, we're using a ledger. We have opened the Ethereum app and we can press continue. Again, select the wallet you want to connect with, and then select the account you want to use. Logically, it will not have any funds on it just yet. And there we go. And now this specific account, you'll notice you have 2. This one's named Ledger 1 and it's a hardware tag. It can only be used if you have the ledger plugged in. So once again, it is safer than the other version, but sometimes a bit more cumbersome to use. MetaMask Ledger and Chrome do not always 100% play nice to each other. The fix for this changes quite a bit, but currently there's 2 things you need to always do. The first one is to enable blind signing on your ledger. In order to do so, you go to your Ethereum app on your ledger device. Then you go to Settings, open it, and then enable blind signing. Once again, by using the double buttons at the same time. The other thing is to go to your settings, go to Advanced, and then select WebHit for your preferred ledger connection type. There is a chance that this changes in the future as well, so always keep an eye out on the latest recommendations. One other thing to note is that MetaMask was built for proof of work chains like Ethereum. It can sometimes be a little bit fickle on high throughput proof of stake chains. If your transaction ever seems stuck, there is a decent chance that you need to reset your account. This does not remove any of your funds, but it does cancel a stuck transaction. Of course, there's also other wallets available. Both AVME and Rebby may actually end up playing better with Avalanche. Now that you have your wallet set up, you need to get some funds onto the Avalanche network. The good news is that compared to the previous video, the exchange integration with Avalanche has improved a lot. So previously, you only used to be able to withdraw Avax to the X chain, meaning you have to go through your Avalanche wallet to then send it to the C chain and then from the C chain to your MetaMask in order to use it for DeFi. Luckily right now many exchanges such as Binance, Coinbase and KuCoin have the Avalanche C chain integrated, meaning you can withdraw directly to your MetaMask address. Also, buying Avax has become a lot easier for US based persons, as Avax is now also available on US exchanges such as Binance US and Coinbase. Another big improvement compared to last video is the introduction of the Avalanche bridge. The Avalanche bridge has replaced the Avalanche Ethereum bridge, which was quite slow and painful and quite expensive. Instead, the new bridge has been much praised. It's an amazing design, it's very quick and very cheap to use. It's actually cheaper right now to send funds to Avax, make a trade there and send it back to Ethereum than it is to make the same trade on Ethereum. Another great thing about the bridge is that if you send at least $75 worth of any token, you will receive an Avax airdrop that will help you pay for your first gas fees. So it's completely possible to use Avalanche without buying Avax on an exchange as well. I've also made a whole introduction video to the Avalanche bridge, so if you're ever curious about how this bridge works, I will also leave that link in the description. Finally, if you have funds on a different chain that you want to move over to Avalanche, there are a couple options such as for example Elk Finance and the Relay chain. But I'll leave those out of the scope for this video, otherwise it's going to become way too long and complicated. Now that you've set up your wallet and funded it, as you can see I've also funded my wallet with one Avax, not sure if we're going to use it, but just in case. Now you're ready to enjoy Avalanche DeFi. Now there's this website avaxprojects.com, which is a huge and useful collection of I think all the apps that have launched on the Avalanche ecosystem. You can even sort by type, so for example I mentioned there's multiple wallets. If MetaMask is not so enjoyable for you, take a look at these maybe. For the sake of this video, obviously we cannot walk you through every single one of these apps, but I've selected a few projects that hopefully can get you started. I think DEXs are a logical place to start, and luckily on the Avalanche C chain we have many different DEXs to choose from. The biggest DEX on the Avalanche ecosystem right now is Trader Joe. Here you can do your trading, liquidity farming, and it also has a lending/borrowing product. To my mind, what really sets Joe apart from other DEXs is its very unique UI, and it has a great user experience as well. The second biggest DEX is Pangolin, and I think I'm doing them a little bit of a disfavor of recording this video right now because I think they're just about to launch a new UI, which I'm quite excited for, though I haven't seen all of it just yet. Pangolin was the first ever DEX on the Avalanche ecosystem and is governed through a DAO, so it's completely in the hands of the PNG holders. And also because it used to be the biggest DEX because it was the first one. For certain pools, especially pools containing Avalanche native tokens, Pangolin may have better liquidity than Joe, so it's always good to keep an eye on Pangolin as well. Or instead you can use trade aggregators such as YieldJack, Paraswap or Markr. All of these apps will try and give you the best price for your trade. So for example, if you wanted to trade 10 wrapped Ethereum for Avax, according to YieldJack, Trader Joe would be the best place, and you can actually just execute that trade from this interface. If you're into yield farming, Avalanche also has some great options such as for example Penguin Finance, which I just did a completely new video for. But what's really cool about them is that their yield farm generates many different tokens as rewards, and their API is normally higher than just staking it in a liquidity pool on an exchange. Avaware is another yield farm that has been around for a little while. If I had to point out one thing that makes Avaware really cool, it is their NFTs, which are both beautiful and stakeable for more rewards. As a final example, there is the DeFi Yield protocol, which is just about to launch their improved contracts on the Avalanche C chain. Of course, there's also apps that make yield farming a lot easier. I have two examples that have been around for almost as long as there's been DeFi on the Avalanche C chain. The first one is the Snowball network, and the other one is once again YieldJack. But in short, both apps take the rewards that you get for yield farming and reinvest them into the farm, meaning you'll now be compounding your earnings. You could also do this manually, but depending on how many farms you're in, this may be a quite manual task, and you would have to pay gas fees for all of those transactions. Both apps are also sharing their revenue with their users through their own tokens. Next up is a set of apps that really launched the rush of liquidity into the Avalanche ecosystem. It is the lending and borrowing apps. The first of those to launch was BENQI, developed by Rome Blockchain Labs. I've got a great interview with one of the co-founders, Alex Tool, up on my channel as well, which I highly recommend. But in short, you can use BENQI to get interest on tokens you're not using right now, and you can also use it to borrow funds against them. DeFi blue chip and absolute staple in the lending markets, Aave, is also available on the Avalanche C chain. And as mentioned earlier, Trader Joe also has their own lending and borrowing protocol. Then there's also Teddy Cash and Orca DAO, which both allow you to get a 0% interest loan against some collateral. These lending apps open up some crazy strategies which we really do not have time for in this video, but I've recently done a video on a low risk strategy that involves Aave, YieldJack and Orca DAO that I will also link in the description. And yes, I did say YieldJack because once again both YieldJack and Snowball have products available that will automatically help you make most use of these apps, such as for example through folding strategies. Next up are Launchpads, a great way to get access to some upcoming cool apps on the Avalanche ecosystem. In my opinion, Avalanche is the premier launchpad on the Avalanche ecosystem, and recently it has been launching some really cool products that you may have heard of, such as for example Crabada, which we will also talk about in a moment. Penguin Finance also has their own launchpad, which you can get access to by staking their Penguin Finance token, and as a final example, Lydia Finance, which is also a DEX, also has a launchpad where you buy your tokens with LP tokens. I already briefly mentioned Crabada, which is one of the premier examples of gaming available on the Avalanche ecosystem. The game is currently in beta, and again I have recently done a video which goes much more in depth than I can do in this video. But in short, your Crabs are NFTs, you can also breed them to get more. They have attack and mining power, and you can use them to farm more Crabada and treasure under the sea tokens. Another game that's currently in beta and that I've recently done a video for is Heroes of NFT, which is a bit of a mix between Gwent, Yu-Gi-Oh! And similar tabletop games, where you have cards of different strengths which you play in different rounds in order to beat your enemy. Again, as a final example, there is NovaX, which is a bit of a resource management game where you own one or multiple planets which all generate resources, which you can then use to upgrade your planet or buy more stuff, which you can also later use in quests. In terms of NFTs, we have many different series to choose from, but Avax Apes is one of the most successful series that has launched on the Avalanche ecosystem. It sold out in minutes, I think, and it was the first app that introduced reflections for both minting and sales on the marketplace. More recent and a big success for the Avalanche Party Animals, which are also sold out at the moment, but they're still the marketplace of course. The Avalanche Party Animals are based on the Wolfie character, which is kind of the unofficial mascot of the Avalanche ecosystem. I think I have to shout out CryptoSeals as the very first NFT projects on the Avalanche ecosystem. CryptoSeals are, if I remember correctly, algorithmically generated and look really cool, and they can be invoked to summon a character which can have multiple tiers of rarity. For example, the Deathbringer you see here is a very rare character. This Deathbringer is a tier 2, there's also tier 1 and tier 0, which are even more rare. Finally, I want to give a shout out to Snowies, which are some of my favorite NFTs on the Avalanche ecosystem. Now, most of these NFT apps have their own marketplaces, but there's also larger market platforms such as Kalau, which is also a virtual reality gallery for your NFTs. NFTrade has historically seen a lot of value on the Avalanche ecosystem and still has many NFT pieces up for offer. And for example, YetiSwap, which is also another DEX, also has an NFT marketplace. And honestly, we haven't even really scratched the surface of the many different apps that live on the Avalanche seed chain. But my voice is getting a bit sore and undoubtedly this video is getting a little bit long, so I just want to shout out Wonderland, home of the Time token and the Memo token. Wonderland is an own fork developed by the creator of Magic Internet Money, who has many big plans to leverage this token, for example in esports I think. And another honorable mention goes to Everest DAO, which is the first app that has introduced some form of options. Other real apps that are still upcoming are for example Platypus, which is a new kind of stable swap, the Hubble exchange, which will introduce perpetual futures, Aero markets, which will also introduce options, Dexalot, which will be a DEX with an actual order book, Imperium Empires, which will be a AAA game launched on the Avalanche blockchain, and Colony, which is a DAO that will be used to invest in upcoming Avalanche projects. As mentioned, there are many more apps that I haven't even had the chance to get into, but I really need to rest my voice. If you want more information on these apps, also check out the videos on my channel, because I may have done a more in-depth explanation of them. And otherwise, don't be afraid to reach out. If I understand it at all, I will try and help you. If you've made it so far into the video, thank you so much for your attention. I hope this video was useful to you. If you have any questions, please reach out to me in the comments or on Twitter. Also, if there's another project you think other people should be aware on, feel free to shield them into the comments as well. If you want to get further involved in the Avalanche ecosystem, there's also a great Discord, the Avax Build Guild, where you can connect with the teams of multiple of the apps on the Avalanche ecosystem and try to get a role in those apps for yourself. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, I really hope this was useful to you. I hope to see you in another video, and until then, goodbye.